Hey everyone, Bradley Williams here with a 60-second blitz. First question, NeoFrost17 asks, what's your favorite course in Austin to play? My favorite course to play in Austin is Zilker Park. It's located downtown. You get a nice backdrop of the city. It's a beautiful park. It's got two 9-hole sections divided by the park entrance. And it's a pitch and putt on the front 9 and a little bit longer distance on the back. It's good variety. It's good place to introduce a new player or friends or just have some fun. It's a great place to play. Number 2, Owen Miller 3. What's your favorite disc? T-Bird 3. It's dependable. I can use it for backhand, sidearm, flicks. I can throw it high, I can throw it low. It's a really consistent mold. Feels good in the hand. It's a good speed. So you can do a lot with the T-Bird 3. All right, PDGA 167809. How do you stay focused during tournament rounds? Well, as soon as they pop that 2-minute horn, heart's racing, blood's pumping. I have a heightened sense already. I'm almost as focused as I'm going to be once that 2-minute horn gets sounded. It's all about keeping calm, trying to keep the heart rate low, make sure you're breathing, make sure you're not overthinking. It's about managing like your thoughts and your kind of like your, I don't know, your biomechanics. It's all about being chill. Making sure you're thinking about your breath, you're feeling the breath come into your chest, let it fill up your body, let it exhale, close your eyes sometimes. Feeling grounded, like putting both feet evenly on the ground, like distributing your weight equally. You're not like, a lot of times when you get nervous, you get fidgety, you start leaning on one leg and you're feeling off-centered. So you want to find your center of gravity and stay centered throughout the round. ManBot115. How do I stop my plant foot from turning forward instead of staying perpendicular? Well, you want your foot to rotate through the swing. When you plant it, you want it to be away from the target so you can have more rotation on your hips. So you're not looking to keep your foot planted, you're looking to rotate. What you can do is you can do some hip drills if you want. You can just stand up tall and then turn your hips left and right in like a circular motion. And that should help free up some of the blockage in your hips and get you to be turning away from your target and planting. Frunk JD, he asks, what's the best way to use the non-throwing side of my body to power a throw? I think the best way to use the opposite side of your body is to encourage it to rotate into the swing. So like make sure that you're not just like rotating with or trying to pull and separate your chest or back. You want the other side of your body to rotate with you. And some people throw their hands forward, some people put it next to their hip, so it's not like slowing them down. But try to get your other side involved. Try to get it to rotate. Eric is a good name. Asks, if not disc golf, what are you doing with your life? Well, travel is something that I would be doing regardless. That's one of the reasons I play disc golf, is because you travel to play disc golf. It gives you a reason to travel. So I would be traveling in some form. I like photography, and if I could get a job maybe filming or on a film crew or something, I would do that. Danksy Disc Golf. I've never thrown an Innova mold. What should I throw? Well, based on the profile photo, it looks like you try pretty hard. So I would say try a T-Bird 3 or a Roadrunner, Star Roadrunner, Star T-Bird 3. Looks like those are my favorite discs to recommend to people. Maybe a TL3 too. Depends on how far you throw. If you throw in 300-foot range, that's what I would try. All right, Jace Vart. This could be a foreigner, not sure. What's the Tour Series disc this year? I don't know. You know? You have a guess? All right, so Ferret Dance 03 asks, you lean heavily on neutral mid-ranges. What about strong headwinds or short flex shots? Well, I would club up to my Firebird. So I have Champion Firebird for that slot. Anytime the wind gets heavy, I usually go up in speed. So the Firebird is where I lean. I have a few Star T-Birds that I got, first run T-Birds with the Avery Jenkins signature on them. They're really overstable. I use the Star Savant. It's good for flex shots into the wind, and it's a little bit longer than a mid, especially when the wind starts picking up. So that's what I'm gonna reach for. ZG-XCTR, oldest disc in your bag. The oldest disc in my bag currently is an 11-time Casey Rock that was gifted to me. It's been passed down through many players, and now I have it. It's still flying great, and that's currently it's the oldest disc in my bag. Here it is. a gym, legendary disc, the KC Rock. This was all the craze in 2007 when I started playing. Everyone that had been playing for a while had one in their bag or talked about getting one. It was notorious on the course to have like an 11-time KC Rock. So now I've got one. Dawn Steele, describe your journey to achieving one of the silkiest backhand forms in the game. Well, I started by looking at Ken Climo and Barry Schultz. They both had very smooth, deliberate swings. They were balanced throughout their swing, and that was my main goal, to add that sort of finesse to my own style. But through previous sports like basketball, cross country, motocross, BMX, I always like to have like sort of a finesse, flowy style, and that translated well into disc golf. So that's how I went about that. Ryan Hughesleton, he asks, if you could bring one out of production disc back into production, what would it be? Well, what is out of production? When I started playing in 2008 and 2007, the Innova had just came out with like the Star T-Rex, and then they had the Star Wraith, and then they had like the Champion Boss, and then the Destroyer came out. And then somewhere in that era, they released the Max. And the marketing hype at the time was you would never need another disc into a headwind. It was the most dependable, high speed. Basically, you take the stability of an overstable Firebird and you give it the same wing or speed as like a distance driver, like a Destroyer, like a 12-speed disc that had all the stability of a Firebird. So it was like a ultra Firebird, if you will. All right, Andres Stam Disc Golf. How come the Cactus? He's a fan himself. He's a fan of the Cactus. So I live in a Hispanic community, and nopalito was a word that was thrown around in the parking lot whenever I was around to describe myself. And all I can remember from the early days was I kept to myself, I was focused, I tried to win at all costs, and I just wasn't overly friendly if I was playing for money. So those guys are a little bit more laid back. They like to talk. They like to kind of shoot the with the boys, but I just sort of like did my own thing, and I was better than them. I have definitely evolved and changed the strategy. I enjoy the company of other players. I root on shots, the good and bad. I'm not so in my own world these days, so I have changed. The Cactus is a little softer. Skewed view. How did you refine your form aside from practice and throwing? Like what drills and what exercises did you work on? So the first thing that I learned how to do was throw the disc high in the sky. Like we started off with putters, and we would play like long range catch, and we were trying to throw the putter as hard and as high as we could and get it to fly as long as we could. So we were learning a lot about nose angles and which angles you needed to throw the disc on to get the disc to tip and like turn away from its fade pattern. So that was like, and that was the most fun way to play, because you didn't have to throw it very far, you just had to throw it high. So it was just a fun way to do it. Once we got the hang of that, then it was learning how to throw it very low and very flat. So throwing very low to the ground and as far as you could. So those were the two starting points for me that I remember vividly, and I would recommend it to anyone. Dr. Froth, what's the secret to throwing mids? The secret to throwing mids, this is something that I would like, that I kind of remember, and I could recommend, would be throwing the disc slightly nose up and slightly turned over. Just a hint. So you're not really hyzering it. You're sort of just you're playing the disc immediately out of your hand into a turn pattern with the disc slightly nose up, and that's a really nice way to start learning how to throw mids. Jimbo, what tips can you give for using rollers? If you want to try to use rollers more often, just do it for fun. Don't do it for score. Just go out and throw a roller on a hole because you can. Like between holes, try to throw forehand rollers down the trail. If you're walking with your friends, lag behind and try to throw a forehand roller through their legs. Like just try to get rollers out in your game, because you're not gonna you're not going to do them unless you're having fun. And the best way to get good at rollers is just have fun doing it. Throw them, goof around, have a laugh, roll a disc. I recommend the Star Roadrunner to start with. All right, so AC Willoughby 02, tips for putting in a Tailwind. Well, you want to increase the spin. You want the disc to be rotating faster. You want to putt the disc pretty flat. So when it's flying through the air, you want it to be flat. And you would putt a little bit higher sometimes, just in case you didn't get that extra spin on it. Putt a little bit higher, but mostly it's more spin and flat. Alan Rabi, are you still throwing the Nova? Currently not using the Nova. I've switched to standard DX AVRs for 2021, but I will tell you that I have seen some nice Novas at the store, the factory Innova store, and the Nova could be coming back for 2022. Okay, so Jay Lowcant 16 asks, favorite course, favorite pros to have on your card. My favorite courses to play are the Milo East and West course, Milo MacGyver East and West, outside of Portland, Oregon. They're in Estacada. They're beautiful, they're balanced, there's a lot of different shots, they're unique, and they've been around for a long time. So I've seen a lot of old school pros play. I remember seeing Ken Climo play on that course, Barry Schultz, all the way up to the Philo Albatross. There's a lot of history there, and it's wonderful. As far as favorite pros, I like pros who are competitive and don't get too attached to like bad shots or good shots. They stay more neutral and upbeat, just because they're good examples and they're fun to play with. So Alden Harris and Chris Clemens are two that I can think of right now that have been fun to play with last season. Bear TRD, what's your go-to disc for when you're in a pickle? The Star Roadrunner is my get out of jail free card disc. I can use it for standstill shots, I can use it for rollers, I can use it for tomahawks, I can use it for hyzer flips, I can sidearm it. That's my all-around get out of jail free card, it's the Roadrunner. UCF Disc Golf wants to know, what's my favorite hole 18? That is a good question. Off the top of my head, I think USDC hole 18 is my favorite currently, just because of how demanding it is. You know, if I had more time to think about it and think about all the hole 18s I've ever played, there could be another one, but just off the top of my head, it's such a nerve-wracking hole, and it takes a lot of focus and commitment to finish out that hole. And I really like that. And so what is the one disc you could bring back? And if you can have any disc in Halo plastic, what would it be? I'd like to see a Halo AVR, see what that would be like. It'd be kind of cool, just to see what a nice Star AVR would be like in Halo. And then as far as like what disc I would bring back, I think the Max would be a cool disc to bring back. So Dassy 007 wants to know what my preferred sandwich is. I usually lean towards a Reuben or an Italian sandwich when I go out to sandwich places. The Reuben, it's kind of nice because it's warm. So if it's a cold day or something, it's kind of refreshing to have something warm. And I like the sauce. And then the Italian, how can you go wrong with the Italian? Marino FC wants to know, any tips to getting perfect form like yours? You're by far my favorite touring player. Form like mine. Hey, just overextend your follow through and have your left hand flare out beside you. Makes you look like a much better player than you really are. Help me tons. All right, guys, that wraps up the 60-second Blitz with Bradley Williams. Thanks for submitting your questions. Leave a comment below if you would like to see this episode again, and comment who you'd like to see answer these questions.